As I've already pointed out for Luke 13:16, Satan there could simply be sicknesses in people's bodies that were being healed. Adversaries to good health. Let's quickly see that again. Luke 13:16, and ought not this woman, being the daughter of Abraham, whom Satan, a great adversarial sickness to her body, hath bound, lo, these 13 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath day? As this may seem a far stretch to many people, the clues, though, are staring us right in the face. Again, as I'm not going to be speaking about demons in this book, or as the King James Version translates it, devils, because I'm going to certainly do so in an upcoming book on this evil side of creation, part of my series, in a book called, once again, Everlasting Fire, the Devil, and Demonic Angels, a deeper look into the unknown paranormal world, the evil side of creation, part 3, and understanding evil spirits. I'm going to at least give you a hint herein as to what I'm going to be discussing in there. And you can even, in the meantime, check this out for yourself. That in every case of casting out demons or devils in the 4 Gospels, there's not one case of immoral or evil behavior from the person who's supposedly possessed. But each demon was associated with a sickness or mental illness of some kind. That deserves an explanatory note. In the 4 Gospels, there's not one case of immoral or evil behavior, but each was associated with a sickness or a mental illness of some sort. This is not in contradiction to what Jesus had said to the 70 in the Gospel of Luke. Luke 10:19. Behold, I give you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Surely, serpents and scorpions are evil things. And to that, I'd agree. Matthew 23:33. You serpents, you generation of vipers. This is speaking to men and not spiritual creatures from the depths of hell. How can you escape the damnation of hell? As I'm going to be discussing in my upcoming book, again in Everlasting Fire, the Devil, and Demonic Angels, that when Jesus and his disciples during the 4 Gospels account had specifically casted out demons, or that is devils, as it says in the King James Version, they weren't anything particularly evil or immoral in those cases, but were things comparable to mental illnesses or bodily illnesses or bodily diseases. And even though a ton of explanations are due to such a bold statement like that, which again I promise to do in my upcoming book, that doesn't exactly explain what Jesus meant in Luke 10:19. Of them specifically casting out also morally evil spirits, serpents and scorpions. Because I can see this particular verse talking about the disciples, the apostles of Jesus, and indeed even of Jesus himself, and in seemingly contradictory words to what I've already said concerning demons, that they casted out morally evil spirits also, yet not as tradition teaches. Therefore, in concerning immoral evil, I'm going to say that I actually understand such matters in another way entirely. But far from being demonic living beings, at the center of the earth or floating around or whatever. Now, as we already discussed herein, I see ultimate evil being the minds of mankind. That's ultimate evil. Fleshly carnality, the fleshly evilness of mankind in general, which mind is the opposite and opposed to the mind of Christ. And an anointed minister of God can certainly cast out that kind of a demon too, if we so wish to call these carnal thoughts demons. That is, in keeping folks from committing or continue to commit atrocities in this life that their own fleshly minds did think about, did create in their minds, such as immoral or evil behavior toward their fellow man. Do you see where I'm going with this? This is how I'm seeing the disciples casting out evil spirits during the early church days. Not only diseases and mental illnesses, but also the evil thinking about doing immoral behavior by the preaching of God's precious word. In the King James Version of the New Testament, the Greek word for demon, which is daimonon, or whatever, again translated mostly as devils therein. It appears 60 times. And at this website, BibleTools.org, put the address here, they have done us a tremendous favor in listing every instant in Scripture of that word for us, which I highly recommend for the reader to visit and to study, and of which exhaustive list I will be sharing in my upcoming book, where I will be covering the subject with even greater depth than in here, since obviously this is not presently our main topic. However, I'm going to give you a few examples of demonic association with illnesses and of their cure in just a few illustrative verses for the sake of argument, though I truly know that much, much more needs to be discussed in order for such a study to be satisfactory to the deepest of thinkers. Matthew 9:32 through 33a. As they went out, behold, they brought to him a dumb man possessed with a devil, or demon. And when the devil was cast out, the dumb spoke. Matthew 17:14 through 18. And when they were coming to the multitude, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic, sore vexed. For oftentimes he falls into the fire, and often into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, and they could not cure him. Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him here to me. And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. But even so, what about verses like this? Mark 1:34. He healed many that were sick of divers diseases, and cast out many devils, and suffered not the devils to speak, because they knew him. Other than believing that the devils themselves could talk and that they knew Jesus, what else can we say concerning such verses of what they could mean? Well, in another view, and at the risk of someone thinking me crazy for saying this, I'm actually seeing this as to saying that it was not particularly a demonic being from hell that had wanted to talk, but that it was the person themselves who had been vexed with that devil who wanted to talk, and who had then recognized Jesus for whom he truly was because of his amazing gift of healings, but was asked of Jesus not to say a word. But why? Well, if we compare this to other verses that perhaps could be seen similarly, such as this next verse, which incidentally is only a few pages down from verse 34, a few passages down from verse 34, Mark 1:41 through 44. Jesus, moved with compassion, put forth his hand and touched him and said to him, I will, be thou clean. And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleaned. And he, Jesus, straightway charged him, and forthwith sent him away, said to him, see that you say nothing to anybody, but go your way, show yourself to the priest, offer your cleansing those things which Moses commanded for a testimony unto them. So in other words, Jesus was trying to temporarily keep a low profile of his activities away from those who sought to kill him, even though the cured wanted to shout their thanks to him from the rooftops. Again, this is but a small taste of what I'm going to be talking about in my upcoming book. Okay, so anyways, going back to the main part of the book, I had said I'm going to at least give you a hint herein as to what I'm going to be discussing in my other book. And you can, even in the meantime, check this out for yourself, that in every case of casting out demons or devils in the four Gospels, there's not one case of immoral or evil behavior from the person who's supposedly possessed. But each demon was associated with a sickness or mental illness of some kind. This should be our biggest hint as to what we're actually facing when it comes to demons. And yet I know that there's so much more to talk about concerning them, but I wanted to at least give you a hint as to why I made seemingly an outrageous statement in the first place concerning Luke 13:16. Not only, but in this verse, when the sick woman in question was loosed from Satan, it said up further that Luke 13:11. Behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, was bowed together and could in no wise lift herself up. Immediately when we think that a demon from hell, an agent of Satan, had gotten a hold of her to give her this infirmity, that is, this sickness, that's what we think immediately. And yet I have to seriously ask, why do we have to see it that way at all? The road that we've traveled thus far in this book should tell us that by having the same exact conclusion every single time that we see the word Satan in a sentence, i.e. that he's an evil agent that lives in hell, who's torturing souls throughout eternity, that there's really no proof that church traditional teachings on this should be our actual route of understanding. We've already proven that such a Satan can't exist. Have we? Yeah, we have. For just where is the Satan of men's current belief in the Bible really at with what we've learned so far? The poor thing had to get permission from God in the book of Job before he could even lift a finger. An angel of God was called Satan at one time, and so was God himself. Again, holding on to this traditional belief with all of its trimmings takes a lot of faith to do. Also, once more, getting there has to have a great lesson from the apocryphal books, from which not a single apostle, nor even Jesus himself, ever taught from or even mentioned. Let's go to that explanatory note quickly. Once again, I've already covered this idea during a sub-note called Never Not Even Once Did Any of Them Quote from What's Considered the Apocrypha, which in turn was from a sub-note for chapter 1 of this book called Apocryphal Books. Please refer back there for an explanation. Do we therefore really have any other choice than to see Satan in a different light than what has been taught for so many years during church history? Is it even possible for many to have been wrong concerning the old teachings? If we can unbalance such a theory, for no solid scripture can honestly back up such a belief, then we have to question every teaching concerning that bad boy who's supposedly stuck in the middle of the earth with all of his torturous flames and demons also. Well, we actually still have a lot further to go, though, because just by me saying all of this don't really prove it to the hardest adherents of the traditional teachings. So I'm going to actually advance on and try to cover all of the necessary ground, but just please do me a favor and try to see all scripture as a possibility to the contrary of popular belief. And at the end of the day, you just may very well do yourself a favor by doing that.